On this episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, we have a new putter from L.A.B Golf to talk about, and then kind of related onto the topic, we have Tyler Fitzel joining to talk about zero torque putters. Of course, a huge movement in the golf landscape. We'll also go over the Hero World Challenge. We had what we thought was going to be an interesting tournament, and then, of course, just like so many times this year, Scottie Scheffler just ran away with it. So join us for another great episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Hey golfers, I'm Drew Maholder, Second Swing Golf, here in the studio at Second Swing, joined by Sean Bauer, co-host of the show. Sean, we got a fun one today. It's always fun, of course, when there's a golf tournament to cover in December. It doesn't happen too often in the sense of the big names getting together at an event like this, hosted by Tiger Woods, the Hero World Challenge down in the Bahamas. We also have some putting to talk about today, too, and we'll have Tyler Fitzel in for that. But yeah, great one here today.
Yeah, really think you're going to enjoy the discussion with Tyler. Obviously, zero torque putters, light angle balance putters. Mm-hmm. They have made waves in golf, especially since L.A.B kind of, became a little bit more known. All of a sudden, you see more and more players playing them, and now you're seeing more and more companies try to create their own designs, with that zero torque philosophy. So really good fitter's perspective from Tyler coming up. So make sure you tune in for that. Who doesn't enjoy listening to Tyler Fitzel talk golf? And but yeah, let's just get right into the turn here with the latest news in the golf world. And shocker, Scottie Scheffler won another tournament. Kind of ran away with it. It was a little close, the first couple rounds, and then him and Justin Thomas, went birdie to start, and you thought, all right, maybe we'll get a little shootout. And then after that, it was just all Scottie Scheffler. And 9 wins on the year, Olympic gold medal, a major, a tour championship, and then Hero World Challenge now. Yeah. Maybe he thought he'd show some signs of rust after not playing, in a tournament for 2 months? I know he played in the President's Cup, but no, just picked up right where he left off. And
I think we're sort of past this idea that there's ever a reason to doubt or think rust might happen with Scottie Scheffler. He shows up to a tournament, he's there to contend and probably win the event. So yeah, it's ho-hum for him. It's nothing unexpected here. I think he's just one of those guys. A bad day for him is probably going a couple under par, on these tour type setups. And then obviously when he gets it going and he putts well, as we'll talk about his putting a little bit, that's when he'll rattle off 6, 7, 8 birdies in a round and go low. And he does it so frequently.
Yeah, he's the best ball striker in the world. I don't think anyone's going to debate that. And you look at strokes gained, he led the field this week, strokes gained approach to green. He was right near the top in strokes gained off the tee. Mm-hmm. I think he converted 12 of his 14 up and down opportunities. Just missed 14 greens in regulation. And then, it just comes down to putting. If he's putting average or above, I think he wins just about every tournament he's in.
Yeah, he's up there for sure.
I don't have the stats to back that up, but I feel like that's kind of the case.
I don't think that's far off, though.
Yeah.
He switched to the Spider, I think maybe April, May, so to speak. I don't know. I have the exact date or tournament on the top of my brain right now, but something along those lines in 2024, where he had experimented with it at the end of 2023, then went back to the Blade, and then ultimately went back to the Spider tour for sort of the whole year, and then that's when the wind started to rattle off once again. He kind of went on one of his hot streaks that we've seen before. So seems to be working for him. I don't see any shift in the putter head, but we did see a slight adjustment in his putter grip, which was kind of making waves on social media, and or of course, if you were watching the broadcast, they were talking about it as well.
Yeah, he was from about 10 feet and in, maybe he was switching to a claw grip. Mm-hmm. Longer putts, he was still going with his traditional grip. For whatever reason, that must have just felt right. Maybe he's trying to get a little more consistent with those, and that just for those shorter putts, since he doesn't have to worry so much about pace, it's more about line there at that point for him. It worked out, and I think, what was it? He was 10 for 10 or something like that on Sunday from 10 feet and in. If he's doing that, we're looking at a guy that's just going to continue this run, and it's he already had one of the all-time great seasons, and he figures out how to putt a little better. And we could be looking at one of the all-time great golfers. So
that's literally the difference right now. I think it was interesting if you follow her on Twitter or X.com. You follow Ben on. He was kind of starting some discourse about Scottie and how his season compares to some of the great Tiger seasons, and he kind of made the parallel there, and a lot of people came back at him and said, how could you say this? This is the audacity here. And if you look at the numbers from a ball striking perspective, Scottie's right there right now with peak Tiger Woods. And as crazy as that might sound, the difference being is the consistency of the putter. And so those events where Scottie putts well, he wins. I mean, that's kind of the way it is, and that's where it was with Tiger in his prime. And he showed up if he putted above average, which he did more often than Scottie, but he would win. And so that's where we're at with Scottie Scheffler. I don't know if it'll continue in 2025 and beyond, but this year, sort of the I'd say the last 3 quarters of the 2024 calendar year, he was matching the dominance of prime Tiger tee to green.
Yeah. So, and speaking of another player who had a good week down at the Hero World Challenge, Justin Thomas. He was in contention there for the lead and just couldn't really get anything going on Sunday after an opening birdie. But an interesting note here, he led the tournament in strokes gained off the tee, and he was second in driving distance. I think I saw he was about 10 or 15 yards longer than his normal average, and came down to it. He was actually, he normally plays a 44 and 7/8 inch driver. He moved into a new Mitsubishi Diamana prototype for himself, but he moved up to 46 inches. So, over an inch longer. Still playing a GT2, so he's got a little bit more forgiveness, but just adding that little bit of length onto the shaft, that's going to help you generate a little more club head speed. That leads to more ball speed, more distance, obviously. But, for so long, I think longer drivers are a little harder to control. And what you're getting with these new drivers coming out is there's so much forgiveness across the face that, it's almost worth the extra 10, 15 yards for these guys because they know, maybe I missed the sweet spot by just a little bit, but I know my ball speed's still going to be good there. It's not going to go so far offline just by missing a little bit. And so just an interesting... Interesting stat there I found.
Yeah, I think what you see with drivers nowadays is even if you look at like the stock configurations of, maybe these driver lines will have a standard model and a higher MOI or super forgiving model. Those forgiving ones might be stock length a little bit longer, and that's because of the reason that you're talking about is they can afford to be a little bit longer because they're more forgiving. And so players can go after them a little bit more with some more swing speed, but that forgiveness will be there. So that's exactly the idea and the strategy that Justin Thomas took with this adjustment. And it really helped him. I mean, I think there's all kinds of data out there to suggest that nowadays in golf, hitting the ball further, there is kind of a correlation there to having, a higher likelihood of finishing strong in events. And so he's taking advantage of that. I do believe, too, I think in the past he's been playing, TS3, TSI3, TSR3 models with driver. So the switch to GT2 maybe gave him kind of that confidence to say, okay, I'll go longer with the shaft because I have a little bit more forgiveness here with the club head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we saw when you were out at TPI, when you compared, those Titleist drivers over the years, when you had a heel strike and a toe strike with the GT versus,
night and day.
TS, and it was night and day difference, the spin difference, the ball speed, retention, like everything. And so that's, credit to the technology that's been developed that, the more forgiveness, you can, swing a little, go a little after it a little more and still see some good results. But moving ahead, so that was this week's, past week's, I guess, PGA Tour tournament. This week we got a fun one. It's the second running. It's the Grant Thornton Invitational. You got PGA players teaming up with LPGA players. It's a 3-day tournament. The first day is a scramble. Second day is alternate shot. And then Sunday, the final round's an interesting way to do a 4-ball. Each player tees off, and then they switch balls after the tee shot, and then they play that ball all the way in.
That is interesting.
So cool, interesting little format there. A lot of, big names. Jason Day and Lydia Ko are the defending champs. They're back. You got, Nelly Cordes teaming up with Tony Finau. Brooke Henderson and Corey Connors are runner-ups last year. They're back. You have Sahith Theegala, Tom Kim. A lot of really good names on both, sides of the tour, including Lexi Thompson playing again, even though she is retiring at the end of the year. She's got one more go at it here. She's teamed up with Ricky Fowler. So just curious, Drew, just thoughts on, this kind of format of the tournament, and then if you have a team you're looking at.
It's a lot of fun. I think I hope this sort of inspires at some point a larger, maybe a 4-day event, maybe that's kind of sanctioned, in terms of the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour some way where you could kind of have a team event, for points and just make it a little bit bigger deal than this. Obviously, this is a lot of fun as it is. But in terms of the teams here, you mentioned some of the big names that are in it. One of them you mentioned actually is going to be my pick this week. Runner-up last year, going to go north of the border here. Corey Connors and Brooke Henderson, the Canadian duo. I like the dynamic in a team event of the golfer archetype that hits the ball, tee to green really well, and maybe isn't so good statistically with the putter. Because in a team event, you kind of get, you get two chances at putting type of thing, right? The odds of one player putting well kind of goes up. And so with that said, I think the ball striking of those two together could be a big win. So I'm going to pick them.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tom Kim and Gino Thidikal, mostly just based off of, play of late. Tom Kim was runner-up at the Hero World Challenge, and Gino, she won, the Tour Championship on the LPGA side, so they're both playing some good golf right now. So they're my pick, but yeah, should be a good tournament, should be fun, and I hope some more team events or these mixed team events. Maybe that's something you have the Ryder Cup and the Solheim Cup. Maybe this is what the Olympics could look at. Like, hey, let's get some mixed team stuff in here that makes it so we can showcase just the amount of talent on both tours. But all right, well, anyways, we have a new L.A.B putter came out this week, the Oz 1i. First one to feature an insert. It has a Tour Inspire shape, kind of a, almost like a half moon mallet. Adam Scott had a big influence on developing this. It still has, all the lie angle balance stuff that L.A.B offers. So really good putter. You can pre-order now on secondswing.com, but that's kind of leads into our main topic of the day, and that's just talking about zero torque putters.
Yeah, so we've got Tyler Fitzel joining. As you guys know, if you've been following the show or following the YouTube channel, Tyler spews golf knowledge like nobody else. And so we're going to talk about some zero torque putters with him. He's, especially now with kind of the emergence of L.A.B, right? And, obviously this new model is kind of a sort of an added, cherry on top to this discussion. So, be a great conversation. It's going to have a lot of insight, and this trend, it's something that golfers, if you're not quite dialed in on it yet, the zero torque idea, it's something you might want to pay attention to if you're struggling on the greens. So really good stuff. All right, we now welcome on Second Swing Thoughts podcast. It is Tyler Fitzel. Mr. Fitzel, of course, been on the channel, been on the show many, many times. We wanted to talk about, this actually was an idea from you when we were doing we're getting ready to do one of our live segments, talking about zero torque putters. And so you hear this term, zero torque, and just there's kind of a new wave of science being brought into putter design. And so I guess, first of all, let me just ask you, what is zero torque? What does it mean? Yeah. What when a golfer hears that, what should they be thinking about?
Zero torque is when the center of gravity in the putter itself is directly below the shaft. Okay, so if you think about, as an example, a more traditional style putter, let's use a Ping Answer, a Cameron Newport, Odyssey #1, things like that. The shaft enters usually somewhere more closer to the hosel. And then there's certain amounts of offset that can be created. You have plumber's necks and slant necks and things like that. When you start talking about a zero torque, that shaft enters more towards the middle of the mass. So as an example, L.A.B putters are very they're the hot topic right now. And what you'll notice is that the shaft is not just entering into the club head, it's actually more towards the middle of the club head. In other words, the weight can be equally distributed around the center of that shaft. So almost all of the zero torque putters you're going to find are straight shafted.
Right.
There's different takes on it, but it's kind of like putting the shaft further back into the middle of the club head so that there isn't any more gravity on one side of it the other, or mass, I should say. So that's a huge distinction to be made, and we've seen there's probably, I'd say, about a half dozen companies out there that are making zero torque putters as well. Okay, yeah, because you've really only seen it. Maybe it's happened before. I guess that's another question to ask you. Is it's being talked about a ton now. Yeah, and there's kind of a
a momentum, so to speak, that's been sparked here that I think maybe some of these companies are latching onto.
Yeah.
But has it been a thing before? I mean,
Yeah.
like, for example, how close has a traditional center shafted putter been to zero torque?
Yeah. They've a center shafted or straight shafted putter, and there's a slight difference to it, but essentially is if the shaft is running right through the sweet spot, if you will.
Yeah.
If that shaft is usually up on the club head, or it's usually somewhere right close to the face, so there's a slight offset to it. That's been around for quite a long time, and that's the closest you can get to a zero torque putter without being zero torque. The other piece of that puzzle is we've seen this out of many companies before. What they've done is, for instance, Odyssey had what's called the backstrike, and the backstrike was where the shaft was actually curved so that it entered further back into the center of the club. And when it did that, it was more zero torque. The other side of that was Adele, where they were creating toe-up putters, and Odyssey actually made a toe-up putter as well. And what they were doing is they're using the weight and putting as much weight as they can into the toe to resist the movement or the twisting of the face of the putter as it's moving through space, right? So you're using mass to affect by gravity and then the location. Right. So we've had several methods of zero torque style or the, let's call it the desired effect. The other thing you could think about too is long putters. And so you talk about sweepers and broomsticks and just the really long putter in general. So the steeper the lie angle gets, and generally those are straight shafted putters, they also resisted the twisting, which is the idea of torque, right? It's the twisting motion. So the longer the putter got, the more upright the lie got, the less that the putter had twisted. So we've actually had zero torque in a sense for decades.
Yeah.
We've seen it for decades. It's now just become a bit more fancy because of a couple of unique styles. But we've seen waves of these putters come through and maybe not necessarily catch on as we thought. But, of course, this has definitely caught on because we've seen tour players, PGA Tour players are using it.
Yeah, yeah.
And once you see that adoption at that level, it makes everyone kind of think, well, then what is it? And that's where there's some benefits to it.
I think it's almost up to a point where, like, these styles, as they were around for years, it's almost as if, players were, and maybe this is wrong, but it felt like really good players or tour players were so, they liked the way their putter looked. And it seemed like for a long time, getting a player to switch a putter it rarely happened. And so nowadays, you've seen you saw, was it last year or the year before, you saw, Zalatoris and Glover, Adam Scott going to the sweeper style from L.A.B, that Mez Max. And it seems like that kind of sparked things into kind of paying attention to L.A.B, paying attention to these new scientific or these different, unique looks. And it's like, well, it might look a little different than I'm used to, but there's something about it that works, at least for these players and their goals for putting. So is it for everybody? Like, I guess that's the question I have, because I like a mallet putter. And so I'm intrigued by it already, but, like, I have to imagine someone that's playing a blade with a ton of face rotation it would be a drastic difference to put one of these in the bag. Yeah.
So the technology itself, what is it and who's it for? If you kind of go back to the basics in terms of putters to begin with, where the face is pointed at the moment of impact is really what drives our putting stroke. Yeah. Okay. So high-level professionals and really good golfers control the face angle. And that's one of the things that zero torque is trying to drive towards. Okay. So all of these putters are essentially trying to keep the face from rotating. And if the face doesn't rotate, you can take it back and bring it through with a more squared up face. So you'll kind of hear from a lot of these companies as it's just get your alignment and go ahead and roll the ball. And that's what this putter's doing. So it's taking away face rotation. It's doing it by gravity. It's doing by mechanics. It's doing it with physics. It's trying to take away face rotation. So if you are someone that doesn't rotate the face a lot, this would work pretty well. If you're someone, as you just mentioned, someone with a blade, like even just a full toe down, all toe hang type blade like I use.
Yeah.
For me, these putters don't look good. They don't sit well because I want to rotate the face. So I would say that if you look at the PGA Tour level, and then this is obviously, the elites in the world, there aren't a lot of guys using this. There are some guys, and we recognize them by their names and their accomplishments. And
we recognize them just because it's different. It's like, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
It's different than most players that are using a traditional even mallet or blade, right? But these just catch your eye.
Right. And we also see a good example of that. I also want to liken this technology. Some other technologies have been out there before. Wrist lock is a good example of it. Okay. So we see Bryson wants to get into kind of the wrist lock technology. What he wants to do is he doesn't want the face to rotate, right? His end goal is the same thing as a zero torque putter. He's just not using a zero torque putter.
Yeah.
So when you get things like wrist lock is another good example of that. So if you're looking to minimize misses with the face angle, that's where the different models of zero torque putter really come in.
So if a golfer is feel like they're missing putts, not so much based on speed, but because they feel like the face is, that it's a 6-foot putt and they're missing the hole.
Yeah, and it could be, you can miss it right because the face is open, then they miss it left because the face is closing. So a zero torque putter is best, I say, probably best utilized if you can keep the face from rotating. If you have kind of I'm going to try to take this straight back and straight through. At the end of the day, there's always some sort of rotation in the face. There has to be. Unless you have a 90-degree angle in which you can use a true pendulum.
Right.
Right. So the ball's a little bit further away from us, even though it might be under your eye line. The putter isn't dropping from your eye line. It's there's an angle to it.
Yeah.
So the other part that comes into this is the different variances amongst these putters, right? There's a lot of different options on the market right now. You need to test them because some of them have a lot of loft, like an arm lock, and they make you forward press. Well, if you're not someone who likes to forward press with it, you're going to add a lot of loft, and this is basically it probably will just go straight left on you.
Right.
Then you're trying to hold the face open, and now it goes right on you.
Now you've messed with your putting stroke that you typically do. So
Yep.
So in fittings, I guess, what's been the big takeaway? Not talking about maybe a tour pro, but amateur players.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a major takeaway, a major difference that you're seeing compared to maybe Joe Schmo is 6 or 7 handicap? That's maybe above average for an amateur, but they're looking to improve their putting to get lower. What's the big difference that they're seeing?
The first thing that I always look at is, can we somehow gain consistency in what we do? Right, so everyone's going to be a little different, and the way that they're going to putt, the way that they're going to approach it, their technology and their technique. What I would say is, can you repeat? It's repeatability. And if a putter like this helps you keep the face squared longer, you're going to have more success. And one of the things that I look at, and I've had several fittings where someone might have a little bit more rotation. They're trying to keep it square. The physics of this is where that shaft is entering in to the center of gravity is going to help keep that face squared up, even if you rotate slightly. So it's going to help you keep that in line.
Sure.
When you start taking other putter styles that have more toe hang to them, that toe hang has to move. Whereas now we don't have to move any of that, right? It's moving down its target line. The one thing that we talk about in fittings a lot is we really look a lot at the loft of the putter, because the loft creates launch angle, but it also can create direction and it creates spin. And those are just really important things that we talk about with any club. Any club. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we get into it, we have to look at what style is going to work for you. If you forward press a lot, a couple of styles with more loft might work better for you. If you don't, we might want to go to a style, a company or a putter that has less loft. And so that's one of the things I've already noticed is I've been able to pick up and use a bunch of these putters. We've got them. We start seeing them in the stores. We've had L.A.B putters for quite some time. For us now in the stores, you can come swing square to square, the Odyssey putters. We've got them in. We're not too long. We're going to see the Bettinardi putters come in. They've got what's called the Antidote. We've already got even roll putters. They have some zero torque options, and we've already got those in. So we already have some options in, and that's what we want to do. We want to test that out. how does this look? How does it roll? What is the ball doing off of that? We talk about this all the time. Can you set up, aim, and shoot?
Yeah, that's what putting is.
If you can do that and kind of take the thought process out of this is, all right, let's just get this rolling, you're going to make more putts.
Yeah.
And so I really think that this is an option worth looking at. And that's one of the benefits of getting fitted is like we have the opportunity to sit down and we have to look at these options. If you want to go about it on your own and you're interested, I would stop by one of the stores. Even doing some more research on that. If you have an opportunity to get outside and roll one of these things at your local golf course, it's worth looking at, certainly, because if more putts, lower scores, more enjoyment, we attach it to that. But just in general is if you hit, maybe it's one more par, one more birdie, one less 3-putt. It's like that lowers your score.
Right. I mean, we've talked about that so many times, whether it's you or Larry or anybody. It's like, if you were averaging 35 putts around, something like this might be the difference from dropping that 2 or 3 shots. So that can help you lower your score. So golfers, Tyler said it best. I mean, it's worth a try. It's worth looking at. It's worth seeing for yourself if it helps you with your putting. So go schedule a fitting or stop by one of the stores. We got all kinds of options, as Tyler mentioned, to try out in this kind of zero torque family. And it could be the difference in making you sort of taking that next step in your golf game. So Tyler, thanks for the time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me in.
All right, that was obviously a great conversation there, and I think the cool part about zero torque putting is there's some in-depth science behind it that actually at first seems like it's a lot to kind of take in and understand, but really the main idea is that it helps you and to square the face at address and at impact as well. So there's obviously a ton of benefits to it. Great to learn about it, and again, it's something worth trying, especially if you feel like there's room to improve your putting. This kind of by nature and by the science of it helps. So really good stuff there. And we're excited about where that's going to take our putter fittings in 2025. So also some more things on the YouTube channel coming. So it's, of course, the holiday season. So we've got with the holiday season, there's some new stuff coming in January. That's really exciting. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, Dinner with a Winner returns. We've had kind of a break there. But episode 3... we also have a cool guest for episode 4 as well. But episode 3 is with Kevin Kraft, who you may or may not know if you follow the channel. So Kevin, no, he doesn't have a PGA Tour win, but he has won several professional golf tournaments. Most notably recently, he's a 2-time champion of the Pennsylvania State Open. And then in 2024, won the Pennsylvania Senior Open. And he's actually the only player ever to hold both of those titles at once in Pennsylvania. So we had him in town here for a discussion, for some pizza, for some drinks. And of course, it was an absolute hoot to hear from Kevin. So that'll be coming next Tuesday, the 17th. Will be a great episode. I encourage you to tune in for that one.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. Kevin's always a good time, and just from seeing a little bit of previews, it should be a really good one. And shout out to Surly for hosting that.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like Surly beers?
To Surly. I will also add one more thing too about that. Kevin, his kind of career and sort of the way he's he was on trying to make it to the Corn Ferry Tour. He had status there, and then the reason he kind of ended up quitting professional golf at one point is because he had the yips with the driver. So it's kind of cool to hear that story and sort of how he fought through it to return to professional golf competition. And obviously he's done pretty well since then. So really cool to hear that.
Yeah. And on the Second Swing side, our holiday gift guide's still going on. Obviously we had all of our Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales, had Green Monday earlier this week. But holiday gift guide's still going. Some of the best clubs, within our selection, obviously a really good selection of Cobra Dark Speed, any type of driver or fairway wood. They're at, just phenomenal price points. They have, this year's technology in them. They perform well. So good option to go, test out in a hitting bay at one of our stores or just talk with one of our online fitters to get a feel for it. And same thing goes with the Mizuno JPX 923 Tours and Forged irons. If you're more of that player's type or looking for a player's distance iron, you're looking for something that, feels really good, performs well, those are a couple great options too. So they're part of that second, the holiday gift guide. So make sure to check that out and finally, let's wrap it up, Drew, with one of our favorite segments. It's Second Swing Finds, and we always find some cool clubs within our selections. And this is just here at the DC. You go to one of our stores, it gets even better. So let's just see what you got.
Yeah. So this is a fun one. This is over kind of on our putting green. It's a Titleist Vokey wedge. Okay, but this is a prototype. So it actually does say, it says 2015 prototype there on the club. It's kind of stamped on there, and it's a V grind, 60-degree V grind. So clearly, and you can kind of see there's some unique, grinding and relief to it that you don't see on any of their kind of staple grinds. It's just kind of one of those fun clubs we like to chip with over there on the putting green. So definitely a unique one here. There's some unique stampings on it too. You got the BV kind of initials all the way around, basically where the ferrule is here. So this is definitely a unique one. It is not listed online. So I know we kind of do half and half almost with stuff that's listed online versus stuff that's not. This one's not online at the moment. Maybe it will be.
Yeah. Well, my club is listed online. It is a tour issue Ping Rapture V2. This is a 3-wood. We have a few of these woods. They are from a decently prominent PGA Tour player that they came in on. Really clean look. Has the graphite design 80 XC8 shaft in it. So I just always, anytime you see like a tour issue, it just kind of stands out to me. Kind of curious. What exactly all goes into that. But,
I think what's cool about that too is I feel like every time I see a Rapture, I see it really, really used because people loved them so much. And so it's rare you see one in that good a condition. Driver, fairway wood, whatever it might be, you see a Rapture that in that good a condition. I mean, that thing is still pretty pristine.
Yeah, I mean, it's in above average condition. We have like a whole set of them. One's got a Ventus shaft. This one, obviously, the graphite design, but just stood out to me. And, as a guy
probably a player that was testing a few different shafts, but you, of course, bonded hosel, so you couldn't adjust it like that.
Couldn't adjust it, but someone who plays an older fairway wood, seeing, the metal here, it just kind of sticks out to me.
That's true.
So.
You do have an older fairway wood right now, don't you? So.
All right, well, that wraps up this episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Like I said, watch out for Dinner with the Winner next week, and got some cool stuff coming out later this week. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button, follow us on our social media channels. We'll see you back here next week.